Yo Solomon, Yo Solomon.
So we're going to tackle two icons, revolutionary icons, the Solomon Mahlangu, the Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu, and Chris Thembisile Hani. So we're going to check what have we learned. What are the lessons from their lives and sacrifices for us who are living? Isn't it, there is this saying that the living closes the eyes of the dead and the dead opens the eyes of the living. So we want to see whether our eyes are opened now by their death or untimely death or what. And then isn't it we need to check also in terms of the state of our own society, their lives, what did we benefit? Huh? What did we learn? Are we still on the right track? Are we still following the ideals or ideas that they fought for? This revolution that they sacrificed the ultimate price, and then are we living to that particular level? So that's, or maybe we are somewhere else, lost in the bush, or who are lost somewhere in cities. So after this Molayana memorial lecture in quotes, we will check, we'll see, and then we'll make your own observations that whether we're still on the right track or lost. So I'll invite my comrade here, Masingita, just to start saying something about Kalushi Mahlangu.
Thank you, viewers and comrades. They were going to talk about a history of a revolutionary giant, Solomon Mahlangu. It makes me sad to talk about comrades like Solomon and Chris Hani because of the way they have died. And sometimes we ask ourselves what kind of contribution they could have made had they lived to this era that we are. So Solomon Kalushi Mahlangu was a revolutionary, a cadre of African National Congress, and also a trained soldier of Umkhonto weSizwe. Solomon Mahlangu was born on 1956 on the 7th of the month on the date of 10, meaning that July the 10th, in Pretoria in Mamelodi. Just like any ordinary South African who was poor and being born and bred by the working class family, he was an ordinary dedicated school attendant, who his mother was a domestic worker and whom his father has left the family in 1962. Sometimes his father will come infrequently to see the family. So Solomon Mahlangu schooled in Pretoria High School, in Pretoria, and then until the school closes after grade 8. From that moment, Solomon was very much active, just like the youth in the township of South Africa during that period of 1976. Because if we talk about 1976, it was a period whereby the apartheid government wanted to promulgate laws that will ensure that the medium of instruction in school become Afrikaans La, we will talk about all subjects that are being learned at Ashkolweni, being taught near Africans. So, Solomon was part and parcel of the students who were protesting against this injustice that is being done to the African society and the student in particular. So during that period, because of the danger that was facing students and activists like himself, he was forced to flee the country. In 1976, in September, he fled to Mozambique, where he stayed in Shai Shai for 6 months. And from that period, he was recruited to the MK camps, where he received training in Mozambique and Angola. From that period, from training, they saw the potential of this young, brave man who was very disciplined and very much committed to the cause of the struggle. He was an active participant in military camps of the MK. So, because of the discipline and the dedication that he has, he was assigned to a special mission, the one for mass mobilization inside the country. And then he came back to the country after he had received training on June the 11th, 1977, via Swaziland. If you recall well, he was a young man of 21 years of age at that moment. And if you look, it tells you that to send a special assignment, a 21-year-old trained soldier, it means that that person was very skillful and very dedicated and very brave. Hardly such special assignment could be given a young man like Solomon. But Solomon took it into his heart to be sent to do the task that he was assigned to. He came back via Swaziland, and then he came back with other 3 comrades. It was Comrade Johannes Mutom, George Mahlangu, and himself. Upon their arrival to Park Station, you remember very well that the security branches were everywhere in the country, and they would look for anything that would be suspicious among Africans and the youth in particular, because the year 1976, every youth that will be going around the cities will be searched by security branches. And of course, when Solomon and his comrades were sent, they were very much aware of the circumstances inside the country. That any youth, a young male African person, could encounter in one way or another security branches, either in the township, in the cities, or even to a certain extent in rural areas. So while they were in Park Station, they encountered security branches and police officers, and a shooting ensued, whereby they were finally arrested. And one of them, George Mahlangu, managed to escape. And then both Solomon and Johannes Mutlong were detained. And during their detention, George Mutlong was beaten to a point whereby he was brain damaged. And then came the issue of trial. during that period. The trial started in 1977 until to 1978 March. During the period of trial, there was an international outcry and lobbying to say that about the innocence of Solomon Mahlangu, because on the charges of treason and murder and terrorism act, Solomon Mahlangu had pleaded not guilty in all those charges. Remember those circumstances, it was very difficult because the apartheid system was very ruthless and they were killing and intimidation. A 21-year-old brave trained soldier, ANC, was brave enough to withstand all forms of coercive measures and other harsh measures that were taken against him. And he pleaded not guilty, and then the judge accepted that Solomon was not responsible for the killing that was happening between the fighting. But because Comrade Lucky Mutlo was brain damaged, they took all the cases and implicated Solomon Mahlangu to those cases. There were appeals that were attempted, but appeals were refused until finally when he was found guilty, and then he was to be executed through death penalty. And then Comrade Solomon was executed on the 6th of April 1979. If you remember very well, the 6th of April, it's a date where the colonialists landed in South Africa and declared that it's going to stay and colonize South Africa and the rest of the African continent. That itself, by the apartheid system, was a declaration ukuthi impilo yomuntu wemnyama is nothing to a colonialist. So Solomon was hanged on the 6th of April in Pretoria Central Prison. In his last word, he was not scared to be executed. He was already a 22-year-old man. The apartheid government did not feel ashamed to execute such a young man. In his last word, he said, "My blood will nourish the tree that will bear the fruits of freedom. Tell my people that I love them. They must continue to fight. Aluta continua." Those were the last words of Solomon Mahlangu. Before I come to the aftermath of his execution and what have we learned and where are we in terms of the freedom and the liberation of African people, I will hand over to Dr. General Comrade Tembe. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that particular history. So, yeah, so Solomon Mahlangu, there was a transit camp in Mozambique, Chai, and then where he stayed, and then he received military training, and then from there he went to Angola. So in Angola, what he have done, he was trained in terms of military combat work. So in terms of military combat work, this subject focuses on intelligence and counterintelligence, and the theory of revolution, which including the building of the revolutionary and the army So the reason why it was sent from Swaziland, as Comrade Masingita said, so that on June 16, there is what we call in the army or in the revolution what we call military armed propaganda struggle. That on that particular June 16, they were supposed to commemorate June 16. So they had pamphlets. So those pamphlets we used bombs to distribute pamphlets. You make some small explosive and then the pamphlets will just fly over and then start to distribute. You won't see who's distributing, but in the morning you will find that there is those things. And then they were carrying Avtomatova Kalashnikov. So Avtomatova Kalashnikov were referring to simply AK-47. That particular day, on June 16, they were supposed to shoot. Something must be happening. Firing. That isn't it? After 1976, people were not sure whether the ANC is still alive or not, because from 1960, after the banning of the ANC, there was a huge lull until the formation of Steve Biko, when they brought in the black consciousness, that you must be proud of being black, you must not comb your hair, and that you bring back your consciousness. So 1976, we know very well that this was student struggles. That one that was killed at the age of 12. The first one to be Peterson, the first one to be captured by a camera, being shot, and then even the sister there, and then Makubo, Joseph Makubo, that disappeared. We don't know that one is carrying that particular kid. So it was the issue of saying that the ANC was trying to establish itself, because since they left, not even a single person, leadership from the ANC was sent back. You'll understand when we were going to discuss the issue of Chris Hani, why Chris Hani was sentenced to death and then he dug his own grave, and then was until Muzwaima Piliso, and then and O.R. Tambo, they rescued him. So that was that. So when you check in terms of international condemnation here, because Solomon Mahlangu was the last person to be hanged by apartheid regime. He was the last person. And then the funny part of it, you said there's Phineas Mahlangu, a relative, Solomon. But now Phineas Mahlangu is serving 20 years in prison. He killed his own son some 3 years ago. He ran away, but he was captured. When he was captured, he was turned into Askari. Askari were referring to people who joined the ANC, MK, they came back and then they switched sides. So Phineas Mahlangu is the one who pointed, parade, that this is Solomon Mahlangu. So in terms of sabotage, the maximum sentence here sabotage, it was 5 years. But they introduced a doctrine of common purpose, that if we are four like this, we plan to, if someone shoots some person, it means we are on equal level in terms of common purpose. So that doctrine of common purpose is no longer applicable in South Africa. It is in disuse. It means they are no longer applying it. You can't use the doctrine of common purpose. So that's what happened. So what Mina, I think that we have learned, I think some of the so-called leaders, You cannot, when you talk about Solomon Mahlangu, MK, you cannot now, you call yourself MK party. It means you are ill-disciplined. I don't understand those theories, Gustavo Marx, Lenin, whether they make sense to you. Now that now you can say you're establishing an MK party. A 22-year-old hanged as a member of MK. You see, in Pretoria prison, where was it? It is 52 steps. You start 50. Isn't it? If you are in a death row, you are put in one cell, but 7 days prior for you to be hanged, and then they will take you next to the 52 steps, and then so what they decided, this political prisoners, and they used not to wear shoes, not to traumatize others. Now you can count the steps, those 52 steps, and then when they sentenced him, the judge that sentenced Mahlangu, he said, "You are going to be hanged by your neck until you die. May your soul rest in peace." How do you say, "May your soul rest in peace"? You are passing a sentence. You are going to be hanged by your neck until you die. So it means you can stay 24 hours refusing to die, but you are going to be hanged by your neck until you die. And then when I'm Tafka, and then you call yourself MK. It means both Solomon Mahlangu, they were highly disciplined. So we understand who declared that there was a moratorium against the life sentences. Money, they were Makubomba, this one, what Makubomba? I remember, yeah. So those were the last people to be hanged, because they used to hang those people by a bunch every day, by a bunch of 7. We are a revolutionary, you are going to be hanged the same as a criminal. So they used to take them as a bunch of 7, and then after a rope here, and then a plank, and then press, and then open, and then gutter, and then you break your neck. So in Mamelodi, isn't it these political prisoners were being they were being buried, and you said he was from Mamelodi. He was supposed to be taken to Mamelodi, because those people who were hanged in Pretoria, they were buried in Mamelodi. But because there was a huge contingency of people wanting to see, so instead of carrying the body of Solomon Mahlangu, they used an ambulance, and then they buried him at Ridgeville. That's what we're going to rebury, to be taken to Mamelodi. So, in short, the lesson that is that it doesn't matter whether you're 82-year-old or you're 22 or you're 22-year-old. But if your medulla oblongata doesn't work, as an 82-year-old, you are going to create a crisis. And then a small boy of 22-year-old, he saved a lot of people by just being hanged. Nobody was hanged again in South Africa. So those are the things. And also in terms of, when you check, he was in grade 9 when he left, 9 or 8, at the age of 20. You see, nowadays, if you are at the age of 20 nowadays, you are supposed to be in second year at university level. But because of we Africans, blacks in particular, the issue of education, we were colonized. To go to school, it was one of those things. So that's why now, in terms of United Nations Charter 3, the basic human rights, it is a crime. Now, it is a crime for a child not to go to school. Isn't it to a presumed illiterate if you didn't pass grade 9? After passing grade 9, you are presumed to be literate. So you'd understand that the issue of education now here in South Africa must take it serious. Now there's an implementation of the law that they criminalize parents. They criminalize parents. For you not to take your child to a school, you will be arrested. That's what it is. So these are the things that I see in terms of education, in terms of sacrifices, in terms of if he wanted to betray a revolution, you should have betrayed the revolution. You should have become an askari. So you see, those are the things that this is what we need to learn from what happened. Not to play with this revolution, our own blood, and then we go out and then we are corrupt, education system collapsed, health system collapsed, we're driving big Mercedes Benz, riding on the blood of our own martyrs, because Solomon Mahlangu has been martyred. So yeah, so those are the things that I see that that's what we have learned in its short lifespan of life, or almost 24 months. Almost 24 months. But some they spend 60 years. Nonsense.
So, while you are still on the short or a brief history of Solomon Mahlangu, which of course we are going also to, just like Kalushi Hani, we are still going to make lessons that are going to perhaps start next year, where we'll be talking about their lifetimes in the struggle in details. Solomon Mahlangu was an icon to the youth and was an icon to South Africa, to black South African. And his struggle was not only meant to liberate Africans in particular, but his struggle was to ensure that black in general got liberated and that South Africa become a non-racial and prosperous and a revolutionary country that conforms to the norms and standards of respect for human rights and respect for humanity. Solomon Mahlangu sacrificed his own education and life of a young man. You remember that in the township, young men would dress very nice and with suits and with jacket, and even go to sessions, because during those time I think jazz was fashionable. When we talk about Bamidodi, we can say that it's a capital city of jazz in South Africa. So he sacrificed all his luxury and life, the struggle to ensure that there's emancipation of blacks and African in particular. That dedication and sacrifices that he made is the sacrifices that we want the youth of South Africa to ensure that they made such sacrifices in all sectors of, in all aspects of life, to ensure that South Africa become the better place. We should not, as the youth, allow to be led by people that are very much immature and those that we would have referred to as askaris in those days, and who are confused and who want to dwell into power forever. Because if I don't lead as Masingita, nobody should lead in this country. So Solomon Mahlangu was an exemplar in terms of the task that he was given. And he never refused to be given tasks by the ANC and the MK in particular. So the life and the lessons and the legacies of Solomon Mahlangu should carry on. The youth of today should remain disciplined, should learn, advance their ideas, and not be scared of anyone in the country. The youth of this country should be militant. The youth of this country should bring change. If change does not come for the betterment of the youth and African life in particular, the youth should stand out and ensure that they fight for the emancipation of the youth and the country economically, socially, and politically. So if Comrade Solomon say that his life, his blood, should nourish the struggle, it tells us that the struggle for emancipation of South Africa is still on, and the youth should take it into their own hands to ensure that the struggle and the emancipation of the life of an African became liberated in this country. So those are some few things that I want to contribute and challenge the youth to say that the youth should learn, the youth should be disciplined, should advance, and the youth should fight to ensure that the struggle will continue until the life of an African become better. Because we are living in a country that have the most high inequality in the world. And to the life of an African youth, you must take it upon your own hands to ensure that this country become liberated. So these are some of the few things that we can talk about today. Thank you.
Yeah, so in short, what we're saying is that the youth of today must defend, consolidate, and multiply the gains that now we find ourselves in. Consolidate, defend, consolidate, and multiply the gains.
Isoja nomkhonto wesizwe owabulawa mabhuni Afrika. Solomoni, Solomon, Mahlangu.